So I think everyone knows the TR-909. It's in nearly every dance track even today, or at least elements of the sounds. I have a mixed relationship with this box. It is very expensive. I don't know, when you use it, it doesn't give you that warm, fuzzy feeling that the 808 gives you when you use that. It does feel very much like a machine, but it is a great sounding machine. And my first kind of memory of the 909, or at least what I could remember as the 909, was on the Prodigy Experience, the intro to Music Reach 1234. It starts with a 909 drum beat. And that's I found out what it was, and that's the first time when I realized what a 909 was, and I must have been, I don't know, probably around 13 years old when I kind of realized that. And here we are with this 909. Now, this is a later revision 909. So they originally came out in 1983. But I can tell this is a later revision one because it has the OS upgrade, which is meant to fix some bugs. This does have MIDI, but it's not the best implementation of MIDI. And people always suggest that you don't really use the MIDI on this machine. But, it does work. You just have to be careful. In order to start writing a beat, I've already filled up the first two pattern banks. So I'm going to go into bank 3. If I do shift down here and bank 3, that will go into pattern write mode. And then I can select the first pattern, which is unused. Right, so that's playing. There's no sounds, so I can do instrument select and select from these wonderful instruments. So there's a bass drum, which has a loud and a soft version, a snare drum, which has a loud and a soft version, 3 toms, which have a loud and a soft version, rim shot, hand clap, closed hi-hat, loud and soft, open hi-hat, which weirdly you have to press these two buttons together to access, which is a bit bizarre. And it's got a crash and a ride. Now everything on this machine is analog except for the cymbals. And the Roland engineers at the time congratulated themselves on great sounding analog instruments that they felt sounded super realistic. And they probably sound more realistic than the 808, but they still don't really sound that realistic. Actually, I think they did a really good job of the toms. They sound like actual toms. Anyway, let's choose the loud kick drum. Now you can see here it's flashing, and which means it's the quieter version. So the bass drum has 4 controls. It has tuning. Now with the tuning, I watched a few videos on the 909. And there is a sweet spot with the tuning. So if you turn it up from halfway, you get to about 2/3 of the way up. And there's a sweet spot in the tuning that sounds great, and I think it's around there. There's a level control, just to adjust the level. Now there's an attack control, which you can hear at the start of the sound. There's a transient. That's on full. That's on minimum. It kind of makes more of a difference at lower tunings. I always leave it on full. There's a decay control which you can adjust to taste. I usually do this in the mix to adjust the length of the kick. And you can do a booming sounding kick drum if you want, with the decay on full, attack on minimum, tuning low. It's not quite as nice as an 808, but it does work. It does the job. Right, let's put some more kick drums into this. That's the loud kick drum, that's the quiet one. Now I'll select the accent instrument. I wanted to do a break beat, so when I do a break beat I like to put the accent on 8th notes, and when I do a 4 to the floor I like to have it on the start of each quarter note. Most of the instruments have these 2 volume levels that you can kind of play with, and on top of that there's even an accent control, and the sounds all sound a little bit different depending on which combination of the global accent and the instrument volume that you use. So you actually kind of get 4 variations, although obviously they're all quite similar. Let's do the snare now. Now I love the 909 snare, it's so aggressive, and you have options to mess around with it as well. So we'll take the loud and quiet version as given, and then we'll talk about the controls. So there's tune, level, tone, and snappy. So I'll turn them all down, and I'll play with the tuning first. The drum skin behind the snare, and you can adjust that to fit in with the rest of your track. Let's do the snappy first. The snappy is the white noise. And it kind of adjusts the volume of that. Now the tone isn't really a tone control, it's more like a decay. Let's do the hi-hats next. Now there is 3 hi-hats really. There's the loud and soft version of the closed hi-hat, and if you press the loud and soft version together you get the open hi-hat. That's a really weird way of doing things. Actually there's a lot of kind of weird usage. I find the 808 and the 707 much more logical to use. Now let's talk about what you can do with the hi-hats. Obviously before I got a 909 I used various 909 emulations, and I always assumed that you could tune the pitch of the hi-hats, but you can't tune the pitch of the hi-hats. You can, however, change the decay of the open and closed hi-hat, and you can do that independently. The volume of the hi-hats themselves is global for the open and closed. So this is obviously the closed hi-hat decay. So that's all you get with the hi-hats. They're 6-bit sample and they sound really good. I'll do the hand clap first because, you know, hand claps are awesome. So there's absolutely nothing you can do to adjust the hand clap. You've just got a level control, but let's listen to the hand clap on its own. Let's do the rim shot now. Again, this is another one of my favorite sounds. Actually, on every single Roland drum machine, I just love the rim shot. Again, just like the hand clap, the rim shot just has a level control. And I think it's cool. It livens up your beat if you just bring in a rim shot later on or something like that. I'm going to do the ride cymbal now. That's also very characteristic 909, isn't it? That ride. The ride and the crash are 6-bit samples as well. And you can actually tune the crash and the ride, unlike the hi-hats where you can just adjust the decay. Somewhere around there is quite nice. Next will be the crash. So far I've been doing everything in step time, but I'm going to do the toms in real time. So do shift and then select tap here. And then I have low, medium and high toms. And weirdly, there's 2 volume levels for the tom sounds, which I've never found that useful. So the toms each have 3 controls, tuning, decay, and level. That indeed does sound quite a lot like a real tom. One of the missing sounds is cowbell, which I wish it had. And there's no Latin percussion either on the 909, so a lot of people use the 909 with the 727, which has a bunch of Latin percussion sounds. Now this thing does have a shuffle function, so let's bring some of that. You can hear it's getting more swinging now. It sounds nice, the swing on the 909. I think the swing on the 707 is a bit nicer. I never like to have a single bar drum pattern. I think it sounds lame if it repeats too quickly, so I'm going to extend it to 4 bars long. The 909 does have a pattern copy, which is merciful since the 808 didn't have one. But the way that the pattern copy works on the 909 is completely the opposite to how it works on the 707. I have no idea why Roland changed their mind about that, but so shift copy pattern 1 enter. I think that will have worked. Yes, it has worked. So just like the 707, you can chain patterns together by just selecting a chain, and then it will cycle through these. So to do that, you just hold the start and then press the end. All right, so we've got 2 out of our 4 bars. Let me replicate the first bar again. Shift, copy, pattern 1, enter. All right, and the 4th one, I'll copy the 2nd one. Shift, copy, 2. Not today, cool. And there's a trick that you can do that works with the 909 and the 707. So if you select a pattern chain, if you press enter, it will store that chain. So when you hit any of those four, you'll get the complete chain, and that's very good for doing jams. Okay, I'm happy with that. I'm going to get the MC-202. So one of the annoying things about the TR-909 is it's only a DIN sync slave. It's not a DIN sync master, which is a bit weird for a drum machine. So the MC-202 will be the DIN sync master. This is quite a fun thing. Basically what it is a synth which is very similar to a SH-101 or a SH-09, but sounding a bit less good, if we're honest. With a kind of 303 style sequencer, but a lot more complicated and even less easy to use than a 303. I haven't made it sound particularly appealing, but it does look awesome, let's face it, and it sounds really good, and it pairs well with all the other Roland bits of gear, so that's a cool thing. And let's program a bass line. What's quite cool about the MC-202 that I've been discovering, I mean, as I say, I've only when you get one, there's some things that are amazing and there's some things which are really poorly designed. So one of the things which is really well designed is there's actually two sequencer tracks. So you can sequence the MC-202, or you can sequence something else with CV gate, like, for example, an SH-101, an SH-09, or something else with the Roland CV gate standard, which includes Euro rack, if you're into that kind of thing. One of the disadvantages of the CV gate implementation of this thing is that it does have a CV gate input, but that CV gate is parsed by the CPU of the MC-202, so it's not connected directly to the synth. If you plug in a CV gate keyboard like Arturia Keystep or something like that, you plug it in, it seems like it's working, and you think that's great. But as soon as you try and make some music with it, you notice there's like an annoying lag and stuff like that. So what you need is to do a socket mod. So I need to come up with a cool sounding bass line. I mean, that sound is kind of like an old school house bass. Sounds very nice. But what I think might be even nicer is kind of like a droning sounding bass, because after all, we do have a breakbeat. So you've got the three options for sub-oscillator. This is the 1 octave down square wave. Sounds really, really nice. 2 octave down. And like a 2 octave down pulse you have as well. Which is going to sound nice in some situations. I'm going to go with that nice one. I'm going to go with that sub-oscillator and just a little bit of sawtooth, I think. It stores one song at any one time. The song can be really long though. Or you can do a short sequence and there's like a cycle function, which is a loop basically. It has accent, and you can choose whether to accent the volume or the volume and the filter. And I quite like accenting both. It sounds a bit more 303-ish. It has slide as well, but it works differently to the 303. So when you do slide on the 303, it is a genuine slide. You don't get the attack of the second part of the slide. It just plays one note and then slides to the new one. Now, if you do a slide on this, it will do a slide on the second note, but it will be a distinct second note. So it doesn't really sound like a 303. So what you have to do is to increase the gate length of the previous note so that there's like a tie, like a musical tie in between the two. So it's not just like when you program a 303 and you go in and you put slides on places where you think might be cool. You can do that, but you always have to remember to go back to the previous note and edit the gate time, which is a bit of a pain. Anyway, droning bass. I like something like that will do well. The sequencer is a bit weird to use. It's actually quite advanced, but that doesn't make it any easier to use. I think if you kind of learnt this sequencer in the MC-202 and you used it with Eurorack, it would be amazing. What you do is you program the pitches in separately and the step lengths in separately, and then the gate time in separately, which is a bit annoying. So first time you press edit, it goes into pitch mode. So I've now got 4 notes stored in there. So the 4 notes are stored in there. I go to the next step now and edit the length of those notes. So I want whole notes for these. So press the whole note button and I'll make the notes legato as well. So now all 4 of those notes are whole notes with legato. Let's have a listen. Not bad. I need to engage the looping function, so that's shift and cycle. What I'm going to do is increase the gate time. Even though I used legato notes as the sequencer calls it, they're still too short. But luckily I can go in and edit the gate time for each note manually. Bring back the 909. So yeah, that's kind of working well. I've added a bit of PWM square wave into the mix just to add a bit more interest. I mean, I know I've been kind of knocking the MC-202 a little bit as I've been giving my rundown, but where it really starts to shine is, yeah, okay, if it's on its own and you get an MC-202, you're like, oh, this is a bit disappointing. It could have been so much better. But then during my experiments, I've noticed if you just have the MC-202 with another Roland bit of gear, then you realize that Roland did actually know what they were doing, because the sound works really well and the sequencer works really well and it stays in time and it stays in tune. And then you think, yeah, actually, it's pretty good, the MC-202. shall I put with that? What can I sync easily? I mean, I could get the 303 and we could do that. So I'm going to tune the two. Yeah, it's about there, isn't it? Let's make a little acid riff quickly. I'm kind of liking that slightly less resonant sound from the 303. I wish it was an octave up. I can go in and make everything an octave up. Let's try that. Yeah, the magic is happening. I kind of knew that those notes that I would put into the 303 would work, but I did just put them in randomly. I'm going to do another acid riff though. Try that. Right, let's see how that works together. So we've got two patterns which are a bit similar and a bit different, so this may work. Yes, that may work. You don't like the second pattern? Well, we can redo the second pattern, gunstick. Let's attempt a jam. Now, obviously, I haven't done too much practice of these things because you've just seen that I've created it from scratch, but I'll just do what I can and we'll see. The MC-202 has come good, disappointing on its own, but it's kind of the center of this jam in a way, isn't it? Am I going to keep the 909? I don't know, Dirty 1200. I'm not really sure. It's good, the 909. It sounds brilliant, but it is super expensive, and I think you can get a 909, things that sound like a 909 for much cheaper, and they sound just as good. Not with the 808, I don't think you can get something that sounds as good as a real 808, but you definitely can with the 909. So yeah, if anyone wants to buy a TR-909, I'd be happy to listen to any offers. Stay safe and have good Christmases, everyone. Enjoy your holidays. Thanks a lot.